Hi, and welcome to Talking Cars. I'm Jennifer Stockberger.
I'm Alex Nizick.
And I'm Jake Fisher.
So we've been talking about it for a number of years, and that is Rivian. Rivian and its two promised vehicles, the R1T pickup truck and the R1S SUV. But the big news this week is that you guys, I missed out because I was under a COVID quarantine, but you got a chance to actually get in some R1T pickups that Rivian we rented from Rivian at the track, got some experience behind the wheel. So I'm going to start with you, Jake, to just give us a little background on the company, the architecture, et cetera.
Sure. So here is a new company, a new American company. I think we've heard stuff like this before. What's really interesting about so just big picture, right? Electric vehicles, right? To start at a new car company is something we generally don't see, right? I mean, before like Tesla and some of these other ones about 10 years ago, it's been a long time. And there's a reason for it. And the reason for it is because building an electric car is a whole lot easier than building a conventional vehicle. A lot less parts. You don't need the transmission. I mean, everything just simplifies the cooling system, the ignition system, all these things. So there's this opportunity for new players to get in the game. We saw this with Tesla. I mean, look, 10 years ago, we were like, are they going to stay? Are they going to, is it for real? We've heard other, Faraday Future, and there's been other ones like Lucid, and you never really know, are they for real? So this is kind of another entry, Rivian. I think what's really exciting here is we got to see the vehicle. We got to drive it. We got to drive it on our track. We got to push it. We got to drive it up our, the rock hill. And I think it really changed probably the way we really look at this car company to really touch, feel, and drive it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the interesting thing too, when you're talking new and ground up, that's the other difference is they're not taking, again, I'll use the F-150, an F-150 and repurposing an existing platform as an electric truck. But this is a ground up electric truck, an electric SUV.
Purpose built.
Purpose built. We say that all the time. When you're purpose building, it gives you a little more flexibility. Alex, give us a little bit about how they've implemented the electric motors, et cetera, the promises for range, et cetera.
Yeah, so they're really hitting the ground pretty hard with this truck. There's a lot that they've put into it. It's one thing that makes it unique right out of the gate is it's using 4 electric motors. So typically we see 1 or 2, a rear wheel drive or front wheel drive EV is going to have a front motor or rear motor. And an all wheel drive version, they just double up, 1 up in the front, 1 on the back. But Rivian is taking a unique approach here, and they've got 4 total, so 1 powering each wheel for all intents and purposes. And that lets them do some pretty unique things with wheel control and just the dynamics of the vehicle. Now you can, have this very finite control over each wheel. And I think where we really saw that, and we'll talk more about it later, I'm sure, but was up the rock hill. Just the way it was able to climb up the hill was pretty remarkable. But the other thing that they're really going after here is long range. They're coming out of the gate with the 314 miles is what they're rated for. And that's, of course, going to change depending on which tires you get. They've got off-road tires. They've got on-road tires. So that changes the range a little bit. But immediately they're coming out with over 300 miles, and they're even promising 400 miles in the future. But as it stands today, they've got a 135 kilowatt hour battery, which is pretty substantial as far as electric vehicles go. I think our Tesla Model Y, for example, has a 75 kilowatt hour battery thereabouts. So 135 is quite a large pack, which means it's going to take a long time to charge and all that. And also part of the reason the vehicle is quite expensive. But so they've got this skateboard platform that is really underpinning the electric vehicle market at large, at least these purpose-built platforms that we talked about.
Yeah, and does, larger vehicle mean larger battery? you just have more battery space to use. And they've talked at length about even a couple of years ago, the skateboard platform of this big long battery that you can put different body styles on. We talked about it, I know, around the New York Auto Show of you can even put an old car chassis on these, skateboard platforms.
And they're doing that with the R1T, which is launching first, the pickup truck that we got experience with. But then the R1S the wheelbase is a little different. But essentially, if you go look at some chassis photos of this, they're able to just kind of pluck that pickup truck body off and plop the SUV body on there, and there you
body
go.
on. Yeah. Mm-hmm. They've also done some cool things, I think, with suspension as well. Height adjustable, multi-link rear suspension, some adaptable suspension that can change not just ground clearance, but access, things like that as well. So you guys got in them. You guys got to drive them. Jake, what are your impressions off the hop of how it operates as a vehicle, maybe particularly an electric vehicle? And then we'll talk in a little bit, Alex, to your point about how it operates as a truck. But what were your impressions?
Well, I mean, the initial impression was this is legit. You get into it, and it's very nice. It's very it's nicely finished. The interior quality is really nice. Obviously there's like this obvious comparison to Tesla. It's funny, Alex, you're talking about, quad motor, right? You see dual motor on the back of Teslas. So we got more than that.
More is better.
But I mean, anyone who's familiar with the interior of a Tesla, it's nice. It's not luxurious. These vehicles really feel much more luxurious inside. I mean, they're just really nicely finished. Seems well put together. Obviously this is the vehicle that's, handed to us. We're obviously going to purchase one. And obviously when it comes to reliability, we're going to be relying on actual owners and seeing what's going on. So I can't really talk about that, but it just seemed like a very substantial vehicle. And then, again, the electrification, the dirty little secret about, how to make the vehicle go for a long range is just bigger battery. You just keep on building more and more battery. And then not only do you get that reserve in terms of the range, but you have this opportunity with those 4 motors, just put down a lot of torque. So this is a vehicle that, sure, it's quiet and it drives quite nice. I mean, the ride and handling seems really out of the gate, really quite well done, but also accelerates like a supercar. I mean, it's just incredible how fast this very heavy vehicle can just get up and go.
Yeah.
We're not sure that's a good thing, that this very heavy vehicle can go really
It depends on
fast.
if you're behind the steering wheel or in front of the truck, I suppose. I suppose that has something to do with that.
And again, you said, it's just an immediate inclination to draw comparisons to Tesla, a brand new startup, American company building electric vehicles. There were some cues, Alex, that were very Tesla-like, if not Tesla identical, that we maybe didn't like so much.
Yeah, so the truck is full of innovations, and we can talk at length about what all those are. And there's some great ones that I think do have some interesting usability cases and all of that. But that's mostly on the exterior and storage related. But then you get inside, and while it is very nice, like Jake said, well finished and quite beautiful to look at, you start using the screens and the displays, and you think to yourself, I've seen this before. If you've driven a Tesla, you have used all of this before. I mean, even down to some of the graphics and the fonts and the theme, like the color and the contrast, you've seen it before. And that might not be a good thing in some cases. We just didn't really, not saying that all Teslas are the worst or anything like that, but it just seems like a copy and paste. And when there was an opportunity with a blank slate to do something new and hopefully better. The one that really, really struck me was the ADAS interface. When you're using the lane centering and adaptive cruise, the display in front of the driver, it does have 2 displays, so that's worth mentioning because not every Tesla does. But just the graphics that they're using, down to the blue lane lines and the little car picture in front of you and the grayed out cars that are around you, all of that was just eerily similar. But then also some functional things that were not great about the Teslas that we, typically would not recommend one because of that reason is stuff like adjusting the mirrors and the steering column are all done through the controls on the steering wheel, and then adjusting the air vents. You have to drag around the little icons in the center screen. So stuff like that. And I get why they do that. It simplifies things. There's no buttons. There's no physical buttons, basically, right? So they can do, they talked a lot about updating over the air and making changes as the vehicle develops. And it does make sense in a startup environment like this to be able to make changes on the fly, that you're not tied to hard buttons. But still, some of those things, I think they could have taken the opportunity to done better and not just kind of copy and paste from Tesla.
Or we've said redundant. Do both.
Do both. Yeah, that works too.
Works too. You talked about amenities. So, Jake, do you have a favorite amenity that's kind of new and different that this truck brings? And we'll talk about all of them, but did you have a favorite?
Oh, well, I mean, first of all, like when Tesla first hit the market, there was a lot of innovation, and we're seeing this here. And in a truck area, there's like a lot of like, hey, why didn't someone try this? So I think probably right off the bat, I keep on stumbling over the gear tunnel. I think of like, a big transmission in a tunnel. That's what I think of a gear tunnel. But it's like this tunnel that is between the cab and the bed, and it opens up. It's a huge area. You could put in, I could throw my snowboards in there or whatnot. You could put a lot of stuff in there, dirty stuff. And it's a nice area, I mean, we saw some, innovation. I mean, we always talk about the Honda Ridgeline, with that, under the bed storage. But here's like another area, obviously you've got the big frunk. So there's like a large area up front where an engine would normally be. But this area is kind of nice. And there's, other neat thing. I mean, the other one I thought that was really slick was the in-bed. I mean, obviously you don't have to need an electric car for this, but the in-bed air pump. I mean, whenever I go, mountain biking, I'm always, inflating the tires and checking that and whatnot. And here you could do that not just for your stuff, but also for the vehicle. So you could actually fill the tires of the vehicle, all four of them, from the pump there, which also inside has a lock in it. So it works with a central lock where you could lock your bikes in your truck. I mean, there's just a lot of neat stuff.
Yeah.
Those are my favorites.
I could take my new Rivian and go to Martha's Vineyard, drop the tire pressures, go on the beach, inflate my paddleboard, and go paddleboarding, and then put the inflation pressures back.
Yeah.
So I do think it adds to
you got
that
all worked out.
off-road adventure. Alex, did you have a favorite?
Well, real quick, the gear tunnel, one thing I haven't seen anybody mention before, and just looking at these and finally getting to see kind of where the gear tunnel is and how it opens and all of these things. If you look at the truck from the side, I'm looking at a picture of it now, the rear door is actually very narrow, and it looks like they kind of borrowed some of that space. I do wonder if it was everything's a trade-off in the automotive world, right? Could they have gotten maybe some more rear space with the rear seating area, better access, things like that? Luckily, I get to be the one to score cars on rear seat access and comfort, or one of the people. So we'll get to test all that when we finally get one. But one thing about all those features that struck me and stood out to me is there are so many buttons on the exterior of this truck that you have to learn and figure out where they are and what they do. I mean, just off the top of my head, there's a button under the front bumper for the frunk, which opens up electronically. Very nice, but an electronic actuation for that. You have two buttons for either side of the gear tunnel that are on top of the bed rails. Then you also have buttons for the electronic tonneau cover is up there, an electronic release for the tailgate. And then there are some more I'm probably even forgetting, but just a lot of buttons and actuators and things all over this truck that you not only have to learn, but going back to Jake's comment about this brand new automaker, brand new model, how is that all that stuff going to hold up over time? I'm interested to see.
I'll throw one other one, the center cubby. I mean, every car seems to have a center cubby, and you press it and you open it up. This has got an electronically activated center cubby. So you press the button and you get the little electric motors go, zzz, and then you open it up. So, I mean, there's a lot of little areas of things that could break down the road.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like the electric too, a little, like there's a a rechargeable flashlight that just integrates, and a Bluetooth speaker that integrates. So, that's charged and ready to go. Again, I could take that on my paddleboard adventure, those two things. But to your point, Alex, if there's more things, is there more things to go wrong? And I think reliability is a question. We got a question from Bob in Nebraska. It says, I'll be in the market for a new full-size truck or large SUV in a year or two. Currently, our daily drivers are electric cars. The truck will be used mostly for long distance trips, plus the occasional run to the big box store. I tow an 8,000-pound load a few times a year. I'm guessing I'll log less than 4,000 miles a year on this new vehicle. I plan to keep this truck for a long time. So I want something that sells in high volume so there will be plenty of repair parts down the road. So I think it'll be an interesting question for people shopping for trucks in the next few years, be it somebody like Bob, who already has gotten electric vehicles in his home fleet, or not. Would you buy this Rivian knowing Bob's circumstances?
There's a whole lot of details that I think we have not gotten to. The price of this vehicle.
Oh, yeah.
So the ones we drove were about $95,000. They started around $73,000, but with options, they hit nearly $100,000 pretty quick.
Right.
So, just to throw that out. So, before we get to Bob's question, I want to throw out a few things out there.
Yes.
And we talked about the rechargeable flashlights, and we talked about the rechargeable Bluetooth speaker. I just want to throw out that a Ford Maverick hybrid, I could buy for, they start at $20,000. I could buy a lot of rechargeable flashlights and rechargeable Bluetooth speakers, really nice ones. that I could. And here's the other thing: we didn't talk about it being a truck. The bed size, 4 foot 6 inches, I believe. That's the number. That's actually the same length as the Maverick.
Yes,
just about, give or take. Honda Ridgeline is larger in the bed. It does some tricks in terms of the when you fold down the tailgate, it could extend and whatnot. But in terms of really being a truck, and to Bob, who's looking for a truck, towing 8,000 pounds for a distance.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't think we're really quite there. It may have the capability of towing, but let's get real. If I need to go and tow for a distance, just stopping and charging, one, that's going to take a long time because it's a big battery.
Yeah.
And two, just think about the logistics of charging when you have a trailer. Not every charging station is going to be set up in a way that you could actually get to this station and, have it sit there for half an hour and have a trailer with you.
Yeah. I'd say most aren't. The ones I've been to, most of them tend to be on the edge of the parking lot, right? So you've got the curb in front of you. So you got to pull in, and then your trailer's just kind of hanging out in the middle of a parking lot, which is not going to fly. So, that's an amazing point, I think.
I think they talked about too. So 11,000 pounds towing capacity, Jake, to your point, but you can expect your range to drop by 40% when you're towing. So that range,
which is something you would obviously have with an ICE powered, but there's no getting around the charging time and that issue right now. So you're just having to stop more often to charge, and that's going to just add significant amounts of time to your trip.
Well, yeah. And the other thing is that, charging infrastructure is slightly different from the refueling infrastructure. So lo and behold, when you go to a gasoline station, they're designed so you could always pull through. You don't have to back up in order to get in or out of a gasoline station. So it's just like there's possibilities for sure. Right. The future is so close, but the truth is that just, it's just not quite set up there. So Bob, I would say
look into a Ram 1500.
And look, if you're only going to be using the car occasionally, you're only doing 4,000 miles every year, you know what? You're not going to be that as detrimental to the environment. It's one thing to get a huge pickup truck and commute every day to work with it, and do 15,000 miles or 18,000 miles in it. But if you're just doing this on a couple of trips,
you know what? A Ram 1500 is a great vehicle that can tow and has decent reliability,
and it drives really nice, and it costs less than $85,000 for most models.
You think, yeah.
And have
The
a
other
bigger
piece,
bed.
too, that Alex was alluding to is so many things, so many new things, a whole new platform, a whole new company. Bob obviously said, I want to keep it for a long time. Is reliability out of the gate going to be what
Mhm.
somebody like Bob needs?
I mean, with the Ram, you could fix it with a rock, I mean, you could buy parts anywhere, It's
Right.
just like, I mean, it's basic V8 engine. It's just kind of like old school. It works, again, and I think what's really interesting here is, for better or worse, and maybe for worse, the electric vehicles, many of them are really sold to the high end of the market. So Bob can afford his electric vehicles and that truck when he needs it. That actually works pretty good. You commute in your electric vehicle. You're really doing a lot for the environment because you're not commuting in that big vehicle. But then when you need it, you have that truck. You have the best of both worlds. It's not a cheap way to go, but for the environment, it works.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The environmental tie. So, Alex, this is something you and I and Quincy talked about at the New York Auto Show. This
Right.
kind of environmental vibe. And if you look at Rivian's marketing, preserving the natural world forever, and our contribution to the planet. And we talked about the EV contribution to the planet, but also this tie as my vehicle that I want to take and be out in it, that I want to take to Martha's Vineyard and paddleboard and do all these things. Alex, you're outdoorsy, you do that. Do you think this truck is that bridge, could be this bridge?
I think it gets close, right? I mean, the range helps. Having that longer range helps. I don't think, at least I can speak for myself, I'm never so far away from anything that I would feel like I'm going to be stranded or anything like that. So having that 300, especially the 400 miles of range, I think that would work plenty for the things that I like to do. And then it just has all those features that make some of those outdoor activities, more enjoyable, or it supports those things pretty well, or it seems to. We will see in due time. Something that is a little in the weeds as far as protecting the environment, but going back to the quad motor wheel control is a lot of times what you'll see with some of these off-road vehicles, you end up tearing up the trail quite a bit, or the environment that you're in, because you're spinning tires and axles and throwing dirt and doing all this stuff. And I was just doing it myself, driving the truck up our rock wall or watching it happen. There was a little bit of tire slip, but the way that the truck just managed its power and torque, and I mean, you could sit there with your foot just flat on the floorboard on the accelerator pedal, and it would just walk itself up without, very little drama. So my point is that it's going to hopefully be a little more beneficial out on the trail as far as tearing things up. Now, the counter to that is the fact that it weighs a lot. But I do hope that is actually one benefit of going with that system.
A little more leave no trace, perhaps, and
exactly.
Off-road ability, again, speaking of a truck, and maybe some winter weather benefit, too, to managing.
And you're out in the woods, and it's not making any noise, which is kind of an
That
eerie
too.
way of going off-road. It's not polluting. It's not putting out any exhaust. So it is kind of neat.
I do think, and I don't know if you guys think, but it certainly is generating excitement, similar Tesla level excitement. People, some colleagues of ours saying, I'm going to get one, sight unseen, like they're ready to jump on the Rivian skateboard. Huh? Do you like that? They're going to jump on. But I don't know if you guys have heard that, but there's certainly excitement around both the truck and the SUV.
Well, there's what is it? There's like 90,000 orders for this thing, and they're certainly not building that many each year. So there definitely is a demand for this type of vehicle. It'll be interesting. Hopefully it stays together. Hopefully it does well in our the reliability data that we get back. And I think it's wonderful to see another option like this out there.
Yeah, and I know you guys were impressed. I'm really sad I didn't get in it, but we will certainly be buying our own R1T, R1S when the time is right. Yep. So again, look for all of the information at consumerreports.org. Any questions you have, like Bob, send them to TalkingCars@iCloud.com. As always, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching, and we'll see what Rivian brings. And we'll see you next time.